One, Kyrie Irving and Paul George have quite the history together. They were almost traded for each other back in 2008 when Kyrie Irving requested a trade and ultimately went to the Boston Celtics. But supposedly, there was a trade in place to send Paul George to the Cleveland Cavaliers to team up with LeBron James and Kevin Love back then. And what if there is a possibility of these two being traded for each other once again? Now, according to Jake Fisher, there is the Brooklyn Nets who want to potentially trade Kyrie Irving for Paul George. Now, that doesn't mean that that will actually happen. That doesn't mean that the Clippers would want that to happen or that they would be open to that type of trade. But the Nets are looking for options, it appears like, to unload Kyrie Irving. There was the Laker rumors, the owner Sean Marks sat down with Lakers reps over on draft night and supposedly talked about potentially trading Kyrie Irving for Russell Westbrook. I think that it appears more and more that the Brooklyn Nets are ready to move off of Kyrie. All of the antics, the lack of reliability, things like that have been a big issue. And that was what was expressed to the Lakers, supposedly, was that he is a guy that just doesn't show up and that they want a guy like Russell Westbrook, not necessarily that it has to be Westbrook, but a guy that will show up when need be. And Paul George is a guy that would make perfect sense for the Brooklyn Nets if they could work and pull off a trade like this. I mean, Paul George has fit great next to Kawhi Leonard. And so you would imagine that Paul George would fit great next to Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant is a much more willing passer than Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is not known for his passing or passing ability. He's never even averaged 5 assists for his career, things like that. So having a guy like KD who has orchestrated the offense, who has played on a team like the Golden State Warriors with that free-flowing offense, passing the ball doesn't stick long. Paul George, I think, would really benefit from a guy like that. And it falls along the lines of Kawhi Leonard, where you have that other guy that really takes attention away from you and you're able to show up. But the big problem isn't that the Brooklyn Nets wouldn't welcome Paul George open arms, be more than willing to have him on. And Paul George and Kevin Durant are much better than Kyrie and Kevin Durant, in my opinion, because Paul George does so much more. He's a bigger guy. He can guard multiple positions. He can still put up the numbers. He's, again, a reliable guy, although he has some injury issues, but so does Kyrie Irving. So I think that that's kind of a wash there. But why would the Clippers do it? And that's my biggest obstacle with this potential trade, if this was to take place. Now, obviously, there's going to be more pieces involved, especially from the Brooklyn side of things, likely draft picks and maybe a couple other players. So maybe the Clippers can get somebody that they value on the Brooklyn Nets beyond just Kyrie Irving, right? Get a guy like maybe a Joe Harris or something along those lines to really help offset the idea and loss of a Paul George. Not just that, the Clippers actually have pieces now that they never really had before. They're deep. Tyronn Lue, who coached Kyrie Irving, I think is a huge factor as well, right? But you also have Robert Covington, who is a sort of Paul George light, right? That 3-and-D guy. He's nowhere near the level of scorer and stuff that Paul George is, but you're getting that level of scorer from a Kyrie Irving. If you can go get another piece or two that can really continue to add that depth. I mean, we saw what Tyronn Lue was able to do with a team of essentially nobodies in many ways. And then when Paul George came back, they looked like a really serious team, but you clearly still needed Kawhi Leonard. And with Kyrie and Kawhi, I do think that they are a great 1-2 punch. They both do very different things. My only issue is the lack of passing, because Kyrie isn't really great at a facilitating role. He's more of like a 2 guard than he is a point guard. I mean, even with the Brooklyn original experiment with James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant, Kyrie was like, hey, I'll be the shooting guard, you be the point guard, because he knows that Harden is a much better facilitator, right? We saw that with LeBron. LeBron was the facilitator. Kyrie was the guy that just scored. So Kyrie would have to be in a role to which he's just able to score and do what is great for him. I don't think that this is a great trade for the Clippers. I do think that this is just, a report that's being put out there. Again, it's more on the Brooklyn side of Brooklyn loves this idea of maybe that. Of course they would, right? Because one, you get off of your headache that is Kyrie Irving. And two, You pick up a guy in Paul George who makes you immediately a better defensive team, and also another guy that does the same things that Kyrie does and going and getting you, 20 plus points a game. And I just think would be such a better fit next to a Kevin Durant. I don't see the Clippers going this route. I don't think the Clippers want the Kyrie headache, but beyond the Kyrie headache, even if Kyrie, let's say Kyrie is like, hey, I'll buy in 100%. I'm in LA. Kawhi Leonard, I got Ty Lue back, somebody that understands me, somebody that gets me. You got some great pieces around us. Like, we can compete and win for a championship. I still don't think that they would value Kyrie Irving more than Paul George. Although Paul George injury has been a big thing, but it's not like Kyrie has been this Mr. Reliable. I think if Kyrie was this like durable point guard throughout his career who always shows up, I think you'd have a different conversation. I think you'd have like, okay, well, Paul George, like he's injured every year. He's missing all this time. Him and Kawhi, we probably got to worry about Kawhi again. So, like, do we get a Kyrie who can be that guy? He's Mr. Reliable. Like, I just think you change the narrative. Maybe we can get a Joe Harris that can light it up. He's coming off of an injury, but he's like, a big risk reward guy. If he can come in and get back to being true to form, then that's just another great quality piece to add to our team. You get what I'm saying? Like, it opens the door so much more for potential and a championship caliber Clipper team, which I think they already are. If everybody is healthy next year, the Clippers should easily be one of the favorites in the entire league. I mean, they are deep, they are stacked, and they have two superstars that can lead the charge. And this is coming from a guy that is not a Clipper fan. I am a Laker fan, but from an outside bias, the Clippers are ridiculous. I mean, especially with the coaching performance Tyronn Lue did last season with essentially no Kawhi, no Paul George. I mean, imagine what he's going to be able to do with this same team together, healthy for a full season, and you have a Kawhi and you have a PG. I just think that they're going to be a great team. I think that they are going to be scary. I think they're going to be really good. And I don't know if you'd want to mess that up. Not just that, Kyrie is just such a huge locker room headache. It doesn't make any sense why this trade would take place for the Clippers, other than maybe they just wanted more scoring. Maybe they just want a guy that can consistently come in and give you, 20 to 30 a night, hit the clutch shots, hit the big shots, for when Kawhi isn't there, or just to have that other person that can score. Maybe they look at it as like, we have enough facilitators. Tyronn Lue could probably get the best out of Kyrie. If Kyrie can get back to that Cavs championship team, then I think we definitely have a contender. We definitely have a lock. We get another piece or two that really helps and benefits now. Maybe we get a draft pick as well, because you got to imagine Brooklyn's got to unload quite a bit, because you got to convince the Clippers to take and unload them. You got to make the salaries match. You got to make all of those things. I don't know. It's an interesting factor. It's an interesting thought. And I saw the report, so I figured, why not talk about it? I just, as always, I passed the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Again, I don't think that they are going to make this trade. I don't think it makes any sense for the Clippers. But do you think that this could be a real possibility? Do you think that it is a trade that could make sense for both sides? The Brooklyn Nets, they get a Paul George, a guy who is a two-way player, a guy that would fit just seamlessly with Kevin Durant. You get Kyrie. If Kyrie can kind of buy in and be that guy, then you really don't lose much. Maybe you can get another piece. Yeah, defensively, you're going to take a hit, but I don't think that it's going to be that significant of a hit to where you're now a terrible team. And if Kawhi comes back to form, then that's a big thing too. I mean, you got a guy that can basically guard any player in the league. That is huge. That is significant. I just think you have all these pieces. If you can get like a Joe Harris or something like that to kind of come with Kawhi or Kyrie, then I just think that's a pretty good squad. But I don't know. I don't fully buy it. I think this is more of like a Brooklyn hoping and praying that something that, hey, if we throw it out there, maybe they'll be interested in it. Maybe it's a possibility. I don't know. But love to hear your thoughts and opinions either way down in the comment section below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports, join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one.